Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mr. Pretorius.
Morning, Chair. Chair, before you is an application made on behalf of Mr. Ajay Gupta. The application is to cross-examine Mr. Trevor Manuel, who's due to give evidence before the Commission in due course. Counsel will appear on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Helens, and on behalf of Mr. Manuel, Mr. Budlander will appear. Then Ms. Kabashi will make legal submissions to the extent appropriate and necessary at the end of submissions.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Helens.
Thank you, Chair. I have prepared some brief heads of argument which I might perhaps be given leave to hand up.
Yes, thank you.
Just by way of introduction for those who don't have papers before them, such as the public, I'll just briefly sketch the situation that brings me here and then get to the heart of the argument. On the 31st of October last year, correspondence was addressed to Mr. Atul Gupta, care of his attorneys. It was indicated that due to the fact that you are or may be implicated by the evidence of Mr. Manuel, you're entitled to attend the hearing at which that evidence would be presented. And the allegation is essentially that he unlawfully interfered with the appointment of Mr. Fikile Mbalula as a minister. Invitation is to Mr. Atul Gupta to give evidence and to apply to cross-examine. Mr. Atul Gupta did not so apply, but Mr. Ajay Gupta applied because he is aware, according to his evidence, that he congratulated Mr. Mbalula on his appointment as a Minister of State. He's aware that it wasn't his brother, but he doesn't admit that he congratulated him on being appointed as Minister of Sport. We know from press reports that Mr. Mbalula himself says it was not Mr. Atul, it was Mr. Ajay. Now, there is an argument that we may get to about the difference between Rule 3.4 and Rule 6. But representing Mr. Ajay Gupta, and as against a background of a ruling that you've already made, I have to address you as to why I can go any further given your ruling. Yes. Now, the attitude of Mr. Ajay Gupta, which you previously found to be not satisfactory, was that, and on our instructions, he views the NPA and the police, the Hawks, as being less than competent, and he drew to your attention the failed legal proceedings of an asset forfeiture nature where they completely misunderstood banking and the facts at their disposal, and which launched a much publicized raid, arrest, stringent bail conditions for parties, much fanfare in the press, all very detrimental to the Gupta family and the so-called Gupta companies. And in effect, we predicted through our clients that all of this would come to nothing, and that would be demonstrated as to the accuracy, according to our instructions, of the abilities of the NPA and the Hawks. What has developed since then is that, not with a bang but a whimper, that all came to an end with all those charges withdrawn, people's liberty interfered with for nothing, opposition to them traveling overseas, all for nothing. The charges are gone. They are said to be gone provisionally, but we know all charges are withdrawn provisionally, so that's a meaningless statement. Against that background, and against this submission, I'm instructed to ask you, everyone has absorbed and observed the progress of the Commission. No one has yet been cross-examined. There's just been a, if you like, one-sided presentation of evidence. In order qualitatively to assess the validity of all of this evidence, in particular just for example, the dramatic evidence taking place at the moment, someone will have to test the veracity of that evidence. In relation to the Guptas, though, pertinently, you will be unassisted if there is no cross-examination on their part. Presumably, the legal representatives that they appoint would have the skill to cross-examine, even in the narrow confines that may be imposed, but can only do so on instructions. You will not test the validity of that evidence, and your finding at the end will be a limping one. So what is the difference between when you last ruled and now? Our prediction by our client that all of this would come to nothing, that those powers that can interfere with freedom of movement, possible imposition of temporary imprisonment for a short or long period by means of opposed bail applications, have been shown not to have the ability.
If I remember well, Mr. Helens, I said in my previous ruling in relation to the application for leave to cross-examine that Mr. Ajay Gupta, Mr. Atul Gupta had brought, I said that I would have absolutely no hesitation in granting them leave to appeal, to cross-examine if they overcame the hurdle that we had in that matter, in that application. I think that's what I said in the light of the allegations against them. So what?
Well, their position
so it's not. So it's not a situation where, in regard to them, it's not a situation where there is doubt that I would grant them leave if that hurdle were to.
The hurdle is their undertaking to come back here and give evidence in person. That hurdle remains.
Yes.
We say that the hurdle is a much smaller hurdle, which in your discretion you can hop over, in the light of the fact that what they said would happen has happened. There has been a completely incompetent prosecution of all of these people, costing them enormous time, trouble, financial cost, embarrassment, all for nothing. So that is essentially the position, coupled with, I'm sure from the dawn of this commission, you've always realized that evidence would have to be tested in cross-examination. But as the commission has ground on, and as certain people have faltered, perhaps even in chief, or looked dubious in the witness box, we would urge upon you to recognize the valuable tool that cross-examination would be in the hands of someone with information with which to cross-examine, a version. And the tender, of course, again is made of the video conferencing evidence. But their attitude remains, and they say fortified by the demonstrated failing of the Estina dairy matter. So that's a starting point. From there,
yes,
we would go into the balance of the argument, which involves Rule 3, 4, 6,
yes,
Mr. Atul Gupta not being here, Mr. Ajay Gupta being here. But
yes,
it seems to me that this commission has substantial work to do.
Yes.
And if we don't pass this hurdle,
yes,
the rest is academic.
Yes. No, I think that would be certainly a prudent use of our time. As we speak, I don't see that there is anything that would make me go against the ruling that I have made. So I don't know whether in regard to that you have anything further to say.
No, Mr. Chairperson, on that narrow and yet wide issue,
Yes.
I have coupled today's argument with my previous argument with
Yes.
a brief analysis of your previous ruling.
Yes.
And if your ruling remains the same,
Yes.
then I'm debarred from addressing you further.
Yes. Okay, all right. No, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Chair, I'm not sure whether you'd wish to hear me. I would limit myself to the matter that you discussed with my learned
Yeah,
friend.
well, I wanted to say you have heard what I've just
Yes.
said.
Yes.
I have serious doubts that you want me to change that view.
That's perhaps may I just say one thing to reinforce that view, Chair?
Yes.
The only reason which a learned friend gives as to why you should change your view is that the prosecution has been stopped. whether temporarily or otherwise. With respect, all that does is vindicate the correctness of what you said right at the outset, that people who are arrested have the right to appear before the courts, and the courts will do the job, and people who are wrongly arrested will be released. And so it's not a matter that what Mr. Gupta said has been vindicated by the events, what you said has been vindicated by the events. And we submit there's no reason at all for you to change your ruling in a case where, unlike in the previous case, Mr. Gupta is not even implicated in the state evidence which was given, and where he actually has no personal knowledge of what happened at the meeting in question. This is a weaker application than the previous one, and nothing we submit has changed, which ought to lead you to change your view. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Well,
Thank you, Chair.
yes, Ms. Kabasha, I guess you have really nothing to say.
Absolutely, sir.
Okay.
I simply thought I should come up and say we abide by that ruling.
Okay, no, that's all right. I've had the application brought by Mr. Ajay Gupta for leave to cross-examine Mr. Manuel. Mr. Helens, who appeared on his behalf, presented argument in relation to the basis on which I previously dismissed his application for leave to cross-examine in the ruling that I made in September last year. Having listened to him, I am of the view that there is no basis for me to grant Mr. Ajay Gupta leave to appeal, to cross-examine, because the hurdle which stood in his way in terms of that judgment remains. Because of that, it is unnecessary to deal with other arguments, and Mr. Helens acknowledged this. In the circumstances, the application is dismissed.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. You asked for a 5 minutes adjournment so that we can bring
May we
in
make it
witness.
10? There are one or two housekeeping matters to deal with and logistical matters to deal with before we resume, Chair.
Okay, then it's now about 21 minutes past 10. Shall we resume at 10:30?
Thank you, Chair.
We'll adjourn and resume at 10:30. Yes, Mr. Pretoria.
Mr. Agrizzi, that you went on leave on the 15th of December 2016.
That is correct, Chair.
Did you meet with Dr. Jurgen Smith on the 16th of December 2016? And we're at paragraph 51.7 of your affidavit.
Sorry, Chair, I just need to go back a bit. Chair, that's correct. What happened was I got a call from Dr. Smith, and he had cancer of the lungs, and he asked me to come around and see him. Because he was like a mentor to me as well, I decided I was going to go see him, and we were sitting there, and I recall vividly what he was discussing with me.
Yes.
And we were going through what he had achieved in life and that, but more importantly, he reiterated to me a dream that he had, and he was on clouds, and he was explaining to me what he was looking down on and that. But his biggest concern, and he asked me, he says, you know, Angela, my biggest concern is, he was always a very, he had a doctoral in business administration. He was concerned about the people's pension funds and the people's provident funds. And on a previous occasions, people had tried to get involved with the pension, the insurances and that type of thing. So he asked me, please, that I need to check up, because he trusted me to make sure that everything went fine with the pension funds. He did not trust anybody with it. And even though there were trustees in that, the issue that he had was he felt that the only thing that was standing between Gavin and getting to the pension funds and to the upsetting the people was myself, because I'd started standing up. And he says that at that stage already, although it was pleaded that I come back and sort out things, he says it wasn't very sincere. He said there was an agenda behind everything. And that's basically what happened there. What he did say to me, and what he reiterated a few times, was that the idea was also to pin all the corruption on myself and on a few individuals.
And in respect of your own health, what happened in the latter part of December 2016?
Because it was my son's wedding. And by the way, I had a little granddaughter yesterday.
Oh, congratulations,
Yeah,
Mr. Agrizzi.
she's very healthy and very
Yes.
good.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good.
Very proud of her. I didn't feel well. It was my son's wedding, and I didn't want to be a burden on anybody in my family. On the 25th, after I had Christmas lunch, I'd planned it in my mind that I would book myself in to Life Hospital. I walked into Life Hospital, and they said to me, I got a tumor on the heart, and they had to do emergency procedure. I actually had a meeting with all the directors just before I went in, an hour before I went into surgery. And they removed the tumor from my heart. They couldn't do normal surgery, but it was very serious. They actually called my family and said, he's not going to make it. So I went through a coma. I was in a coma. I was on life support, and it didn't look very good. But when I came out of the coma, the doctor actually gave me a rendition, and unfortunately he's not here, but it would need to come from him. But the doctor said that he was very concerned. He went to my wife and he said to her, don't you think it's a bit inappropriate right now? He's still in a coma, to claim on his key man insurance. And my wife said, but I've never done that. Then transpired from the broker that Gavin Watson had tried to claim on my life insurance while I was still in a coma. So I had made up my mind then already to leave. I wasn't going to go. I just couldn't face somebody who would do something like that. And I went on a family break to recover. I went away with myself and my family, went away on a break, And on my return, I received a call from Brian Biebuck, the attorney, and basically he said that Watson wanted to terminate the 10-year agreement and that he was making an offer for an alternative. And at that stage, I was pretty chuffed because I thought, well, you know, at the end of the day, I was worried about how am I going to now get out of this 10-year agreement. And one thing helped in the favor for me was that he now offered me another agreement. Chair, I didn't even debate. I didn't even argue. I just said, that's fine. And I entered into a consultancy agreement, which was maybe 110.
That's the same attitude you had adopted when Chicky Watson came to make that offer on
Yes.
behalf of Mr. Watson, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, you know, it's about a tenth of what the original agreement was. And quite simply, it's been used up by looking after 22 other families that have been affected. Some of them you'll see in the upcoming days. There was the consultancy agreement has been cancelled now. There's nothing there. He didn't adhere to the terms. He didn't pay when he was supposed to. And then I started receiving threats from...
Well,
Before
you
you go
haven't
on.
told us what the terms were of this new offer.
The terms of the new offer were probably, if you're looking for the value, Chair,
Yes.
value is about 10 million.
That being a lump sum or...
That's the value of the offer. As it stands right now, the total value is 10 million. He hasn't paid a cent since then.
Yeah, but over what period or...
Now, that was supposed to be, over 5 years, it was supposed to be probably about 30, as opposed to $250 million.
And what were you supposed to do in return?
No, it was just, sorry, I don't understand.
He offered you something so that you could do something for him.
Yes,
What
I
was that?
had to consult on business opportunities for them.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
If you go back, please, Mr. Agrizzi, to page 8 of your statement, affidavit, paragraph 6.28 and 6.29.
Yes,
What we've referred to as the first agreement.
the settlement.
The settlement agreement
Yes,
is referred to, and we've referred to it in evidence yesterday in paragraph 6.28.
correct.
The full agreement is attached as Annexure B to your affidavit.
That is correct.
The second agreement, what you've now referred to as the consultancy agreement, is referred to in paragraph 6.29.
Correct.
Its full terms are set out in Annexure C.
That is correct.
And it was an agreement concluded between yourself, Bosasa Operations Pty Limited, and Consilium Business Consultants Pty Limited. Gavin Watson, Leading Prospects Trading 111 were the parties.
That's correct.
And as I understand, the agreement accepted your resignation from Bosasa Operations Pty Limited, consequent upon your health issues, and secured you as a consultant for Consilium Business Consultants Pty Limited and Leading Prospects Trading 111 Pty Limited.
Correct.
You told the chair now that you started receiving threats and messages from unknown people. What was the content of these threats and messages, or the import of those threats and messages?
And just get to my notes, please. In Annexure 7, I actually put in a complaint. There were two things that I wanted to do.
Annexure Z.
Sorry. The two things I wanted to do, Chair, was number one, highlight that I wanted to reveal everything. And at the same time, I wanted to make mention that I had threats. So I had threats from various people, various phone calls. Most destroying thing to anybody is getting phone calls that people are going to look at your family and things like that in the middle of the night. I put in a report to the Hawks. Apparently they investigated. Nobody ever came back to me. And they apparently nolly prosecuted when I followed up. So, you know, there was nothing I could do. As a matter of fact, the day after I'd seen the Hawks, I actually remember that day, I also went to go see Mr. Hofmeyer at the NPA to get his advice as well. But there were unending threats. I don't know if you want me to go through Annexure Z.
It's not necessary to go through the detail of Annexure Z, save to confirm the fact that, in fact, these threats were made and messages were received from you. But I would just like you to summarize the period of time over which these threats were made, the content, and whether anybody could be identified as having made the threat,
Yes.
or whether you can help the Chair to know from where these threats came.
Yes. Chair, the threats came directly from two of the Bosasa directors, one of them being Johannes Gumede. And there'd always been animosity between myself and the other director, Papa Leshabani, but I accepted that. It was a bit of an issue with power play and that type of thing, and I always had an issue with him, so I could understand a threat would come from him. My concern was with Joe Gumede, one of the chairperson of Bosasa, had turned, and I was really concerned because I couldn't understand how somebody could be like that. I mean, he had eaten at my house, we had gone away on holidays together overseas, we had spent time driving cars on the track together. I would take him out with me to Clarence. His kids were always with us. And I couldn't understand why he would turn around to Brian Biebuck and say to Brian Biebuck, tell Agrizzi we don't want a funeral very soon. He knows what I'm talking about. And then I was given a recording of a meeting where openly he says, listen, we'll just open up the doors of Westville Prison, let somebody out, let somebody take him out, and the recordings are there and the transcripts are there. And, you know, he's gone. Or he'll stop at the robot and they'll throw petrol over his car and they'll light it. Those type of threats. And it really worked me up because, I mean, here was someone I'd worked with and developed a relationship for 19 years, so I was very annoyed with him. But nonetheless.
Mr. Agrizzi, let's deal for present purposes with the threats. You may get an opportunity to later to deal with context and background. But for the moment, you've mentioned two threats expressly. The first in relation to a contemplated funeral, which should be avoided. Tell the Chair about that, please.
Well, it was openly told in a meeting. The attorney was called one side and told, listen, just go and tell Angelo, we don't want an untimely funeral. You better watch out what he says and who he talks to.
How do you know that?
Because it was told to me by the attorney, number one. And number two is in one of the recordings that Gumede actually admits, and he says in the recording, he says, and I told Brian to tell Angelo, not that we don't want a funeral very soon. So he confirms exactly what I was told.
And the second, concerning the Westville prison?
Well, that was said, the attendees in the meeting, there was Jackie Lades, director of the company. There was Johan Aubrey, the human resources manager. Frans Foster was there, Andries van Tonda, Leon van Tonda, and Joe Gumede. It was openly said that we can be taken out at any time. There's ways and means, and we have the resources. In the meeting also, he speaks about the Hawks and his involvement with the Hawks. I don't know if you want me to go there.
No, I just want you to detail how such a threat would be carried out in relation to inmates of the Westville prison.
we're well aware of the fact that at Westville, for instance, prison, they can open up the door, let out an inmate for the evening, give him the instruction of what to do. He goes, he carries it out, and he's got the perfect alibi because he's been locked up all night. Nobody knows that he actually has left. We've seen it so many times happening in our prison system at the moment. And that threat was made. There were also various other threats made in terms of families and that type of thing. But I think
You say you have seen it happen. Are you talking about personal knowledge, or are you talking about things that you have had that a prisoner or prisoners are let out from prison to go and deal with people?
Well, I've heard of it. I haven't seen it happen. But I worked for quite a long time in the prison sector. And
Yes.
dealing with people and speaking to people, they tell you these things. Whether they're stories or not,
Yes.
they're pretty believable because there are many unexplained murders where these things have happened. So I don't put it past anybody.
Thank you.
Let's move on then to paragraph 51.14, please, Mr. Agrizzi. A meeting took place, according to your statement, at the beginning of November 2017. Would you please relate that to
In
the
November 2017, Chair, I got a call from Brian Biebuck to resolve a matter with people that were still within the group of companies. They had wanted to whistleblow, and they had all left the employ of the company. There were 4 people that left initially that wanted to whistleblow. And he said, I better call them in and deal with them. I said to him, but I don't want to get involved. And he said to me, no, you don't understand. You are involved, whether you like it or not. And I said, but Brian, I really don't want to get involved in this anymore. I don't want to have anything to do with the Watsons. He says, no, but you don't understand. If you don't stop them from whistleblowing, you're going to jail. So I said, well, what do you want me to do? He said, I want you to speak to them. Gavin wants you to speak to them. He'll pay you to do it. But don't worry about the money because you're going to go to jail if you don't stop them from whistleblowing. So I've always had a lot of respect from the directorate, from the staff that work with me, from colleagues. So I phoned up the guys and I asked them to come in, meet with me at my place. And I thought, well, let them get everything off their chest. And I sat with them for about 4 days, discussing issues with them. And they were adamant they were going to whistleblow. And I said, well, chaps, then that's what's got to happen. So at the same time, I started getting more threats now. And I got messages and that. And unfortunately, we spent so little time on this affidavit, or so much time, but so little, there's so much more. But there were threats continuously. You better get those guys to sign. If they don't sign, you've got a bigger problem coming. Yeah. I had bouncers after me and all that type of thing. Not that I'm scared, Chair, but you've got a family, you try and look after them. Anyway, so eventually, with the assistance of a very good attorney and advocate, they drafted a separation agreement. So they could separate.
But before you get there,
Yes, Chair.
so Mr. Watson's or Bosasa's attorney wanted you to speak to these 4 people from Bosasa who wanted to blow the whistle. He wanted you to speak to them to stop them from what they wanted to do.
That is correct, Chair.
And you had a meeting with them over 4 days. During that time, did you try to dissuade them from blowing the whistle, or what happened?
I did.
You did,
Yes, I did, Chair.
but they were determined to blow the whistle.
They were determined, and it was a process that continued.
And in the end, how did that meeting or that process end?
Okay, Chair, what happened was they didn't want money at one stage. They wanted to open a business or do something like that. and there was an offer put in to look at some business within the group that they could take over. But eventually it was stymied, and eventually there was a separation agreement drawn up as quasi-retrenchment agreement.
Involving them and Bosasa?
Involving them and Bosasa's, yeah, and the attorney.
Okay.
So that was drawn up. It was a quasi-retrenchment agreement. I insisted that they sign it. I said, chaps, just sign it. Just get these people off my back, because they weren't on their backs, they were on my back. So the witnesses will tell you exactly what threats were made. I mean, there were photos of their kids taken, one little girl and that. It was really bad. So that's what happened. They signed the separation agreement, but in the back of our minds, we knew that if we were subpoenaed, we were going to testify.
Yes.
And they were going to testify.
Yes.
And that was the agreement all along. And that's why today they're starting their test me tomorrow. I don't know when. But
Yes.
the fact of the matter is that there's more people out there. I mean, there's
Yes.
50, 60 of them there that we
Yes.
need to come out and speak. But people are scared. Chair.
Yes.
Very, very scared.
Yeah.
All right, you in fact know of quite a serious threat that has been related to this week, that your life was in danger.
That's right, Chair.
That means either Sunday or yesterday or today.
Yeah, Chair, I'd rather not, I don't want to go into it because I'm not going to warrant the threats anymore.
No, that's
you know what, if it's like I said to one of the gangsters, I said, here I am, shoot me. You missed 4 times on your previous hit. Try hit me first time.
Thank you.
There may be separate evidence regarding the incident to which I've referred, Chair.
Thank you.
I'd like to try and understand the sequence of events in their proper context, Mr. Agrizzi,
Yes.
arising from what you've just told the Chair. At the beginning of November 2017, and after entering into the second agreement,
Yes.
had you then made up your mind whether to speak to the law enforcement agencies or not?
I had made up my mind already prior to November 2017, but because of the threats and that, I had to be careful on how I did it, and I needed the backup.
Right. In relation to the other gentleman you had a 4-day meeting with, and you persuaded them to sign a separation agreement, was there anything in that agreement that precluded them from reporting on the activities of Bosasa?
Chair, they couldn't report on the activities of Bosasa, but I don't think it precluded them from being subpoenaed and having to give testimony in a court of law.
And what was the understanding between yourself and these gentlemen during the 4-day meeting in relation to the principle of reporting to law enforcement agencies? You said to the Chair that it was your job to persuade them not to speak.
That's correct, Chair.
Just explain that. Was there a reservation, a qualification? Did you have a plan that you withheld, or was it a clean decision not to whistleblow?
Chair, it wasn't a clean decision not to whistleblow. The first thing was family safety. There'd been another family that had lost a brother through this. They say it's unrelated, but I also know that they can cover up 101 things with a little bit of money. And if I can just quickly give you an overview of it. There was a gentleman that worked for me for many, many years. He worked for me for about 15 years. He did all the special projects, which he will give you the information on. And that was CCTV cameras and all that for ministers' homes and things like that. He will testify to that. I don't want to explain what he did. But basically, he had a brother that was jobless and had been living with him for about 20 years. So Bosasa approached this person and said, look, we want you to start writing up false statements and give us a report on what Richard is doing with Angelo, if there's any conversations in that. And he would stay in the house, he would get paid 6,500 rand in cash. And he was then taken out of the house and put in a lodge in Krugersdorp, paid for by the company. About 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, he was found dead in the hotel room. Nobody bothered investigating. We went to the police station. They opened up cases, dockets, everything was just closed down. And Bosasa offered to pay the cremation fees, but he had to be cremated that Monday. They've got all the proof. They can provide all the proof. So you understand the threats that we were under. So what we did, what I planned with these guys is to say, guys, let's just get the threats away so that the families are safe. They can videotape us, they can mark our movements, that's fine. But let's just make sure the families are safe first. Second objective is we need to report this. This is going to create a problem because in terms of the Poker Act, as I was informed, I never knew about this. The person who informed me about this was actually Glynis Breitenbach, who I actually invited to my house to ask for help. And she then told us about it. And then we realized that the time will eventually come where we have to open up and whistleblow. But safety for the families and the kids were critical for us.
I'm still trying to understand, and I'm sure the chair is as well. At the time you met with the gentleman over the 4 days, at the instance of the attorneys for Bosasa,
Yes?
in order to secure separation agreements
Yes, Chair?
and to persuade them not to whistleblow. At that time, I understand that you had decided for security, personal security, and perhaps other reasons not to whistleblow. Is that correct?
That is correct.
When did you change your mind? When did you decide, well, I'm now going to speak?
Chair, I was going to speak all along. I want to clarify my answer there. I had in the back of my mind knew that I was going to whistleblow. As a matter of fact, the advocates that dealt with the matter will tell you that I actually refused to be part of signature of that agreement, of their separation agreement, so that I could open up this thing, and I knew that they would then be subjected to subpoenas and be called in. So I don't think it's correct for me to take the point of view that I decided not to whistleblow. In my mind, I'd always intended to whistleblow. However, I had to protect the families first, and I needed everybody off our backs. We haven't even printed out all the SMSs where the threats are, you will sign that agreement, you better sign that agreement.
I'm sure that at some stage those threats, or I don't know how many there are, at least the most serious ones will be brought to the attention of the Commission.
Are
Thank
at least the important threats contained in Annexure Z?
Correct.
That's the report to the Hawks, is it?
That's correct.
Please.
Okay. Now, you say you were always going to blow the whistle. That would be from when? Was that the case?
Chair, that
From the
was,
time you... Yeah, maybe you should just answer that.
Chair, that was from the time when I got back from holiday after recovering. So it was early March 2017.
Okay, thank you.
Nevertheless, you ask the gentleman to whom you've referred over the 4 days to sign a separation agreement, which you didn't want to sign because you wanted to whistleblow.
Correct.
So is it correct to infer that you persuaded them not to blow the whistle?
Chair, it's correct to say that. He's 100% right. I did in my way persuade them not to whistleblow. But I did know that if I had if I'd whistleblowed, they would be subpoenaed into it. And that's exactly what happened.
So
Yes.
they have since changed their mind, and we will learn about that over this week.
Correct.
At the time that you persuaded them to sign the agreement, did they know of your plan, or the plan in your mind? Had you shared it with them that although you were saying they must sign the agreement and undertake not to blow the whistle, at some stage in the future you intended blowing the whistle?
Yes, Chair.
They knew that.
They knew it.
Okay, all right.
In these circumstances and against the background of what you have now told the chair, did you decide to take advice?
Yes, Chair, I did take advice.
Who did you approach?
Chair, at first I approached Mr. Hofmeyer, then I approached Glynis Breitenbach, then I was referred to Advocate Barry Roo, and an attorney who I don't even want to mention his name because they really messed up. So I approached them, and I started.
Before you go on, I just want to establish the fact that you did seek advice from
Yes.
various persons, including Mr. Hofmeyer, Advocate Hofmeyer, Advocate Breitenbach, and your own attorney and advocate.
Correct. And I was working through it, and
Yes, go on.
can I carry on?
Yes, please.
During this time, I was working through everything, and the threats just kept coming. You can't talk to anybody. You better do this. You better do that. It was out there, but I was still there.
This was now around about when, I assume in 2017?
This is in August 2017.
Okay, all right.
So eventually, Chair, I'd spoken to somebody in the media, and they said to me, they gave me some advice and said, listen, what you need to do is tell everybody the story, then you're safe. And Chair, it's not about me. Please, it's not about me. And it's about the people out there, and really the plight of people who want to tell the story is not that easy out there. Trust me. It is financially a massive burden. These attorneys don't come cheap. And, you know, it's expensive. But anyway, so the evening of the 21st of August, it was about 5 o'clock. I couldn't even eat my supper with my family. I was off my food. I said, no, I can't continue like this. And I sat the family down. I phoned up my brother. It's only me and my brother in this country, and my kids. And I had a chat with the family, and I got them all around the table. And I said, I didn't go through what I've gone through for this. And I explained everything to them. And that's when I decided to put out a press release to open this thing up. I put out a press release, and I basically said, listen, I'm coming clean.
Before you go on, would you look at Annexure AA, please? That's in bundle S2. And it's at page 790, 791 of bundle S2. If you would just bear with me a moment, Chair. Chair, it seems that although the index speaks of the press statement, it's really correspondence concerning the press statement.
793.
We could go to page 793. Is that the press statement you released to the addressees on the email dated 21 August 2018?
That's correct.
It's not very long. I think you can read it, please, onto the record.
It says public announcement and pre-press release notification. So the whole intention of this was to have a press release and actually just give everything out. It says, I've decided pursuant to great thought, prayer, and consideration to provide comprehensive details on all the activities at the Bosasa Group of Companies and myself whilst I was employed there. I've tried not to report on the activities in an attempt to potentially save the jobs there. I've tried not to report on the activities to potentially save the jobs of the people concerned. It is, however, in the best interest to disclose the matters to all involved. And I think the most appropriate platform would be the judiciary and the free press, which I'll be using. I'm also fully aware that I have been fully aware of the wrongdoings, but will tender my full cooperation in resolving the matter and bringing both clarity and truth to the matter regarding racketeering, corruption, money laundering that I have been involved with over the last 18 years.
Read aware of.
Aware of, sorry.
18 years.
The extent of the disclosures involves various high-level people, government officials, as well as public office bearers currently in government positions, parastatals, and state-owned enterprises. I'll be requesting that you will allow me, I will be requesting that you allow me the patience and whilst I process the various information and make same available to all. I will also liaise with the relevant stakeholders in due course as to a press conference and open forum discussion that will be hosted. You will understand that I have been the subject of numerous threats, and thus we have made the requisite arrangements with the various other sources. I understand that my decision impacts on numerous people, but in the interest of our nation, it is imperative to clarify the points and make a full disclosure.
That then, as I understand it, is the expression of your final decision to blow the whistle and come clean.
I knew that there would be pressure on me, so I knew that if I put it out in the open, then I couldn't turn back. Because I've always kept my word. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And if I put something like that in the open, there was no turning back.
You released that statement and distributed that email on the evening of 21 August 2018.
That's correct.
Did you receive any threats that evening, subsequent to the release of that statement?
Chair, I just didn't take calls because I knew it was coming.
I'm sorry, just repeat that.
I didn't take calls because I knew the threats were going to come. So I actually just put my phone on silent and left it in my office downstairs, and I went upstairs with the family.
All right. And prior to the release of the statement, had you received threats?
Well, there was threats that evening, that afternoon.
Did you get the impression that certain people were getting information or were observing you as you speak to certain people and would get to know you're about to do something or something like that?
No, they were well aware. Everybody was well aware that I was being followed. I'd been checked up on. They'd employed a private security guy to check up on me. They used a company that's involved with security but was involved in the nightclub scene and all. And what happened, Chair, was I had, in my affidavit to the Hawks, I got calls from internal staff to say, hey, we've just processed an invoice for 450,000 Rand. And this is a very suspect company, and somebody says that this is for you, to check up on you. And I got all those invoices. So there was like a hit taken out of me, so to speak. I was given all the invoices. They actually faxed the invoices through to me. I'm sitting with people in hospital, a family in hospital at the moment, under stress. For a year, Chair. Not for now, for a year. They've been in hospital. I don't think people realize the magnitude and the cesspool that this is about. So yes, my answer is I got many threats.
Yes.
After the release of the press statement, did you receive any calls from persons within Bosasa or representing Bosasa?
Chair, my phone didn't stop ringing. Then I started getting messages, one after the other.
From whom?
I got messages from Gavin Watson, Brian Brebuck. I got messages from his children, from the nephews, from everybody.
Did you take these calls?
No, I did not.
Did you
Chair.
receive a visit at your house on the 22nd of August, 2018?
I received a visit at my house, Chair, on the 22nd of August at about 9:30 in the evening. There were Ronnie Watson, Valence Watson, and Brian Brebuck and Jared Watson were at my house with Andries van Tonder, and they were extremely apologetic. And they were saying that they knew nothing of what their brother had been doing. So I told them about everything. I told them exactly what had happened, where the threats were coming from, who they'd employed and all that. And I said, look guys, I'm coming clean. And they left at about 1:20 that morning, on the 23rd of August.
Right. Was there a further meeting
Yes,
on the 23rd of August?
there was.
Who was present at that meeting?
On the
But
20
before you go to the further meeting, what was the purpose of that visit to you by the two Watsons and Mr. Brian? Or was it three Watsons?
3 Watsons.
Yeah, three Watsons and
Brian
Mr.
Brebuck.
Yeah. What was the purpose of that visit so late in the evening?
The first purpose of the visit was to try and soften me up, just to keep me calm so that I don't react. And that's why strategically as well they used Andries, because they knew Andries had just come through this with me, and they spoke to him. He's sometimes a bit level-headed, more level-headed than I am, Chair. I'm Italian and I get emotional. Well, I'm South African, but I have Italian blood and Italian spirit, so I get very emotional. Okay, and I lose my temper most of the times. But Chair, what happened?
Was Mr. Andries van Tonder there at that meeting as well?
That's correct, Chair.
Oh, because I don't think your paragraph 51.23 mentions him.
I think you're correct, Chair. It doesn't mention him.
But he was there.
Oversight.
But he was there,
He
you
was
say.
there.
So it was Ronnie Watson, Valence Watson, Jared Watson, Mr. Brian Brebuck, and yourself and Mr. Andries van Tonder.
And my wife.
Sorry?
My wife was there as well.
And your wife was there.
Correct.
Okay. So the purpose, you say, of that visit was that they wanted to calm you down.
That's what they came in there and said, we knew nothing about this. And I actually believed them at one stage. They said they knew nothing. That Gavin Watson had gone on a tirade. And I remember Valence Watson actually said that this is all because of his close associate, Lindy Gous, that they've been anti this woman for years, and this is what's poisoned his brain. So I kind of believed the sincerity at one stage.
And so that's basically, so it was a visit in terms of which they told you that they didn't know about these activities and you just told them, you know, whatever you wanted to tell them about what you knew within the time available until they left after 1 a.m.
That's correct, Chair.
Okay. I think you may be in a position to move to the further visit, but I think it's time for the
It's a
short
convenient
break.
time, Chair. I need to discuss a matter with the investigators.
Yes, we'll take the short adjournment and we'll resume at 11:30. We adjourn. Yes, Mr. Pretorius.
Mr. Agrizzi, during the short adjournment, I handed to your legal representative a series of emails emanating from the Sunday Times.
Yes, Chair.
Do you have that in front of you?
No, I do not. Sorry, Chair. My legal representative had it. He just mentioned it to me briefly that the Sunday Times wanted to publish a story that I'm a liar.
Right, all right. I want to clarify that one way or the other. But firstly, to place the Sunday Times version before the Commission and then to give you an opportunity to deal with it should you deem it necessary. So before we go on, Mr. Agrizzi, with your evidence, it's necessary to just place on record the communication received by the Commission from the Sunday Times, and to the extent that it's possible to clarify.
Sure.
I'd like to read the Sunday Times communication onto the record. Chair, I'm sorry we don't have copies as yet, but we will place copies before you.
Okay.
It's dated Tuesday, 29 January at 10:51, and it reads, it's addressed to Mr. Stamela of the Commission, and it reads as follows: pursuant to our discussions between SANEF and the Commission leadership, wherein we agreed to work closely together, I wish to bring to your attention, it reads, that we intend to publish a story which will show that Mr. Agrizzi lied under oath yesterday. You will remember that he told the Commission that he was never contacted by the Sunday Times in relation to its page 3 story about his house being on the market. As you can see from the email conversation between him and the reporter, detailed questions were sent to him on Friday, and he responded saying he will answer the questions on Sunday afternoon. We intend to publish the story, release the email conversation, and embed the video of his testimony from yesterday. We will also be asking the Commission to respond to this. If I may take you to the email on the second last page of this small bundle, Mr. Agrizzi. It's an email from Bogani Fuzile addressed to yourself, dated Friday, 25 January 2019 at 14:57. Do you see that?
I do.
It says, "Hi, Mr. Agrizzi. Sorry to bother you today. I'm working on a story about you selling your house in Fourways and your Ferraris, while your daughter-in-law Nikita has posted a number of your memorabilia at websites where people have shown interests." Again, I read what I see. Following are a few questions that I want you to assist with. Then there's a list of 8 questions that deal with issues concerning the Ferrari memorabilia, your red Ferraris being sold, your house being posted for sale, the withdrawal of your house from the being on the market from the relevant sites, the fact that contractors were working on site, a question about whether you were officially moving out of the house, and a question about whether you were moving out of the country to stay in Italy and whether you were going to return to the country. In other words, a series of questions about the content of the article that appeared on page 3 of the Sunday Times.
Correct.
And then there also appears on the previous page, because the email trail goes backwards as we know, an email from yourself to Mr. Fuzile dated 25 January 2019 at 15:44. copied to certain other people, The Citizen, News 24, amongst others. Subject, Media Inquiry, Sunday Times. And then the text reads, as per the arrangement with your editor, I will respond in 48 hours from receiving your mail, that being Sunday, 27 January at 14:57. Should you wish to publish anything, you are contravening the Commission regulations as well as the Journalistic Code of Conduct, once more not affording me the right to reply. As with your previous articles, which were proven to be false and fabricated, of which you are aware, and I've already lodged a complaint to the Press Ombudsman for no less than 2 contraventions by your publication already. I have taken the liberty of copying in all the press that have previously published articles in this respect, so that they have an overview of my responses. Furthermore, you are well aware of the Chair, Judge Zondo's request that the media don't publish at this stage. Let me just ask you, firstly, did you receive the email from Bongani Fozile on Friday, 25 January 2019?
Yes, I did.
Did you respond to it in the manner that has just been placed on record on the same day at 15:44?
I would like to just say, yes, I did. I responded. It's my email.
Right. And did you tell the Commission yesterday that you had had no opportunity to respond to the issues that were to be raised in the report?
But he's misconstruing it, Chair.
Well, let's just take it step by step.
Yes.
You'll have an opportunity to explain in due course.
Okay.
Your evidence yesterday, as I understood it, it may have been evidence in summary form, but I asked you whether you had had an opportunity to respond to the issues raised, and you said no, you hadn't. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Your opportunity to explain, Mr. Agrizzi.
Thank you. Chair,
Yes.
I would like them to show me where they approached me on 2 other articles that I've now registered. I'm busy with the applications. I sent the Ombudsman letters. 2 other articles I would like them to prove, because number one, when you're sitting here,
I think we should start with the latest one.
yes,
Yeah, and then we can talk about you can talk about the others if necessary.
Mr.
Let's
Agrizzi,
talk
if I
about
could
the
just
latest
clarify,
one.
sure.
so that your answers deal with the issue at present at hand. If you wish to expand later by reference to other incidents, you'll get an opportunity to do so.
Okay.
But let's deal first, please, with the answer that you gave to the Commission yesterday, where you said you had not had an opportunity to respond. And I'm talking only of an opportunity to respond. And that's what the Sunday Times raise in their email to the Commission. Let's deal with that issue first.
My answer is simply, yes, you're right if you look at it in that, but you're not putting it in context, Chair. It needs to be looked in context.
Well, firstly, your answer was incorrect. You had had an opportunity. Whether you made use of the opportunity is another question. Your reasons for not making use of the opportunity is another question, and you will get an opportunity to deal with both those issues. But the first issue that perhaps requires clarification, and in fairness to the Chair, because he's got to assess your evidence at the end of the day, let's just deal with that issue. The simple truth is that you were given an opportunity to respond and you didn't make use of that opportunity. And any evidence to the contrary is incorrect or false.
So maybe let's put it this way. You gave a certain answer yesterday.
Correct.
What is your answer as of today
Chair, my
to
answer,
the question whether you were afforded an opportunity by the publication to respond or comment on the article they proposed to write? What is your answer today?
Chair, my answer is, If you say to me, did I have an opportunity to respond to the press? Yes, I did. On this is the first opportunity I've had to respond to them on the matter.
Yes, okay. Now, do you accept that the answer you give is different from the answer you gave yesterday to the same question?
I accept that.
Yes. Have you got any explanation for giving the answer you gave yesterday to the question?
Yes, I do, Chair. Number one.
Yes, what's the explanation?
Well, number one is I knew that I had questions from the press because I responded to it. I was actually very annoyed that they had even gone into my own private life and questioned why I was selling things. If you remember, I said that there. I said it yesterday openly. But then I was also accused of sending out an email on a previous publication where they never contacted me, and a previous publication as well. So in my mind, I was not given opportunity by, especially the Times, to respond to anything. And why I say so, Chair, is you need to put this whole thing into context. They published an article that I sponsored the journalist 8 that were fired. It turns out they based their whole article on one piece of paper that was fabricated. That even SANEF came up against them and said, you can't publish that kind of stuff. We never received the donation that you alluded that Agrizzi made. With all this, I'm quite simply shocked because at the end of the day, yes, you're 100% right, Chair, that I did have an opportunity to respond. But this is 1 out of 3, and I haven't even responded because they've published anyway on it.
But the fact that they may, in the past, have failed to give you an opportunity, is that a good enough reason for you to have said yesterday they didn't give you the opportunity in regard to the latest article?
Chair, I've never had to sit through one of these commissions before. Quite simply, it is tiring. You have to have your wits about you. You have to think. You have to answer. You have to put everything aside for 9 days, and I mess up on one question. You know, Chair, to be frank with you, they can publish what they like, and they don't have to answer for it. The Times, and now it starts making sense to me why there's a fight. You can call me a racist, you can call me a liar. Chair, in this commission, I've provided you with the facts, and the people following me will provide you with the facts. That's all I would like you to rule on, is the facts that are provided to you. There's a campaign out there, Chair, second to none, to try and dent my credibility in this commission. I'm happy, Chair. You can rule I'm a racist, you can rule I'm a liar, you can rule that I'm fat and ugly. It really, really, just what I'm asking the commission to do is to rule on the facts that I've presented. And quite simply, Chair, yes, there's a conceited effort. They're welcome to. It now starts to make sense to me why names, full names, weren't given to me by Mr. Leshabani. It now makes sense.
Thank you. Mr. Proteus.
Thank you, Mr. Agrizzi. We will be making submissions in due course to the Chair, but you're quite correct that the Chair will obviously hear what the legal team has to say, hear what other lawyers have to say, and assess the evidence at the end of the day. And you can be assured he will do so in a fair and objective manner.
Thank you.
Chair, may I hand up annexures EE and FF, which are respectively the Sunday Times article in question and the query from the Sunday Times with its attachments. So
the one I have, is it a copy of any one of the ones you are giving me?
That copy can come back to us.
Oh.
I want to hand up a copy which is properly paginated.
Thank you.
for inclusion in the bundle. Right, Mr. Agrizzi, can we go
Thank you.
back to your evidence at page 101?
Sorry, Chair, can I just ask for clarity?
Yes.
The article that, I've been watching all these articles, but the article that they've just handed you, is that from the Sunday Times? So they're actually published on Sunday already?
Well,
Yes, it
well,
is, as
I'm
far
not
as
sure
I
Mr.
understand. I
Pretorius
haven't
will
checked
know.
it word for word.
I'd just
but-
like to ask, Chair, I asked for 48 hours to respond. I just want to paint you the picture. 48 hours from the 25th, that was what date it was published, was on Sunday. That's not even 40 hours. If they publish that article on Sunday, I ask you where the integrity is.
Well, as Mr. Pretorius said, I haven't read the documentation that's been given to me. I've simply listened to what he has read and asked questions based on what he read, and you gave the answers that you gave. If you ask for 48 hours and they didn't say they would not give you 48 hours, it may well be that they published before the expiry of that time. I don't know.
Chair, I haven't even read the articles.
Yeah.
One was put here yesterday. I
Yeah,
tore
you
it up
haven't
and I
had
threw
time.
it there. I don't want to upset. I'm worried about giving you the facts here,
Yeah.
not about bias.
Well, maybe what we should do, Mr. Pretorius, is that maybe if Mr. Agrizzi finishes his evidence before lunch, then he could have time to have a look at the documentation, and then if he wishes to say anything further, he can come back at some stage today, or if he hasn't finished by lunchtime, then during the lunchtime he could have a look, and then after lunch he could clarify anything he wishes to clarify.
Yes, just perhaps by way of clarification, the Sunday Times on the 25th of January at 14:57, that was Friday, set out a series of questions, and it was those questions to which a response was requested, not the article. And then the email, Mr. Agrizzi, and perhaps you would wish to comment, you say on the 25th of January at 15:44, as per the arrangement with your editor, I will respond in 48 hours from receiving your mail, that being Sunday, 27 January at 14:57. The evidence that you gave was evidence on Monday, and although it may have been evidence that didn't take as much time as might have been appropriate or you might have desired, we did ask you about the contents of that article.
Ms. Chair, if I may ask, what date and what time was that article printed in the press?
Yeah, I think Mr. Pretorius, what would be more helpful is to leave this issue for now. Let Mr. Agrizzi get the proper opportunity to look at the documentation, and then later on he can deal with
He can deal with it
clarify.
as he pleases after receiving legal advice at 2
Yeah, that's fine, yeah. Okay, Mr. Agrizzi, you must just get an opportunity to look at the documentation that you need to look at in relation to this whole issue. And if you need to clarify anything, you'll be given an opportunity.
Chair, thank you. I just wanted to know if they gave me the 48 hours, and if they didn't, well,
Yeah.
that shows you their credibility.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Mr. Agrizzi, can we go back to your statement, please, at page 101, paragraph 51.24?
Correct, I'm there.
You refer there to a meeting between two Watson brothers, their attorney, and yourself at your house, that meeting taking place on the 23rd of August 2018.
Yes.
Would you tell the chair about the contents of that meeting, please?
Chair, on the 23rd of August, Ronnie Watson, Valence Watson, and Jared Watson came to my house. It was about 6 o'clock in the evening. I recall because I still prepared supper for everybody.
It was effectively the same group in terms of the Watson brothers that had left after 1 a.m. same day.
They left at 20 past 1 that morning. I had been working on a tender with a colleague, a bona fide tender, by the way. So I had to get up early, and I was up at about 3 o'clock working on the tender, and I'd worked right through until about 6 o'clock. And when I wanted to go off to sleep, they then phoned and said, "Oh, we're coming through to meet with you."
Yeah. Okay.
So they arrived at my house at about, I think it was 6 o'clock that evening. And basically they said that they'd confronted Gavin Watson, who denied the allegations of his affair, and he denied his allegations about the corruption and the allegations that there were threats on me. He denied absolutely everything. But they said that they were mandated by Gavin Watson to make an offer to me to market their property called Royalston Estate. It's a wildlife residential resort in Port Elizabeth that they wanted me, because I've started various property companies, they wanted me to get involved with. Quite simply, they said that I must start a business and they would fund it. I refused at point blank. I said, "What are you trying to do? Why are you coming here? Did you come here to make amends and apologize and let's, despite the whistleblowing and that, let's at least have it cordial? Or did you come here to try and bribe me?" And then it was a big debate. And at one stage it got very heated with the attorney. And eventually I let them go at about, I think it was 1 o'clock in the morning on the 24th. So the next morning.
So before you leave the content of that meeting, was any arrangement made between persons present at that meeting that an agreement should be drafted?
They wanted to draft an agreement from their side, but they wanted parameters from me.
So your statement reads, "I said that Brian Bebuck should draft an agreement, which he agreed to. I was requested to draft the parameters of the offer.
That's correct.
In this offer, I specified that the signed offer should be sent to myself."
Correct.
See, what is not clear from your statement is, on the one hand, you say that you wanted to cut all ties with the Watsons, you wanted nothing more to deal for, you wanted nothing more to have with them.
That's right.
You in fact say you refused an offer in relation to the Royalston Wildlife Residential Estate.
That's correct.
On the other hand, during the course of the meeting, it's apparent from your statement that you asked Brian Bebuck to draft an agreement, which he agreed to, and to set out the parameters of the offer. So
That's
it's
correct.
not clear to us what was happening.
Let me give you clarity, Chair. Angelo, we want you to market Royalston, and we'll pay you for that. No, I'm not interested, guys. I want nothing to do with the Watsons. That's what I said to them. No, but we need to do something. Come on, you know. Eventually, I thought to myself, Chair, how am I going to prove? How am I going to one day prove that they're paying me for my silence, or trying to pay me for my silence? How do I prove it? There's 3 of them, there's 2 of us. So I said to Brian Bebuck, I said, draft something for us. Draft it. Why not? Let's see what you're going to come up with. And if you look at the various annexures and how it was done, you'll see that what actually happened was they sent me a draft. So at 1 o'clock in the morning, they left. The next morning, I think it was about at 10 o'clock in the morning, Mr. Watson and his son arrived back at my house.
Which Watson?
Valence Watson and Jared Watson.
So on the 22nd of August last year,
Yes.
the three Watsons plus the attorney arrived, and there was a meeting which involved the four plus yourself, your wife, and Mr. Andres van Donder.
That is correct.
And the Watsons left at 1:20 on the 23rd
That is correct.
of August in the morning. And you went to sleep, but you woke up at 3 a.m., did you say? So you had about an hour or 2 hours sleep.
That's right.
And then you worked on a certain tender.
That's right.
From then the whole day, and after 6 p.m., the Watsons arrived again. This is now on the 24th.
That's correct.
You had a meeting with them, and they left after 1 a.m. on the 25th.
That is correct.
And then at about 10 a.m. that same day, then Mr. Gavin Watson came.
Not Mr. Gavin, Mr. Valence.
Or Mr. Valente Watson
Yes.
came. With whom?
With Jared Watson.
Yes, the two of them.
Yes.
Yes. How much sleep had you had then?
3 hours. We finished the tender, maybe 3-4 hours, because
Yeah.
we finished the tender, then I had to do a presentation, which I sent out, and it was done. It was actually, when they got there, 10 o'clock was when I wanted to go and sleep.
Yeah.
So then what happens, Chair, is they sit there from 10 o'clock in the morning, and a proposal gets put in front of me. And all the emails, the trail of emails are there. And I get told, you know, what's wrong? How do we fix up the company and all this? I get asked these questions, and I answer them, but I tell them, listen, chaps, I'm trying to work here. But, Chair, they're just imposing themselves on me. So I don't want to be nasty. Eventually, at about 5 o'clock, Jared Watson says to me, he says, you know, we're friends now again. I said, yeah, we're friends. He says, but I want to bring the 2 children with for supper tonight.
I'm sorry, I think I missed something. The 10 o'clock meeting, they arrived at 10 o'clock.
In the morning.
In the morning, yeah.
Yes.
What was the purpose of that visit now?
Because they were trying to make me agree to an agreement.
Or had an agreement been drafted in the meantime?
Yes, they had drafted a proposed agreement.
Oh, okay, all right. And did you agree?
No, Chair, I did not agree.
Yes, okay, all right, continue. I
right,
just missed some part of your evidence.
So now, Chair, now I'm realizing that they're playing games with me. So I'm realizing that, and I look a bit stupid, but I'm not that stupid. But anyway, so I thought, well, you know what? They're trying to tie me out or something. So at 6 o'clock,
In the afternoon?
in the afternoon, in the evening.
On
No,
the
it's-
25th?
Sorry, Chair, it was 4, 5 o'clock. I think they left
On 25 August?
on the 24th of August. I think it's the 24th, yeah, because it's the 24th of August.
Oh, it was still 24th. yeah,
24th of
okay. Yeah.
August. So from 10 o'clock till about, say, 3 o'clock, they were there. So then Jared Watson's walking out, and I think I've got rid of them for the evening. Now I'm trying to keep up appearances as well with them. So there's no one at home. I'm all alone. And the person who was with me was falling asleep, and he needed to go home and sleep because he'd been up as much as I had. And what then happened was I said to him, go, they're not going to come back here. Go home, it's fine, I'm all right. So I took off my shoes, and I don't drink because I'm diabetic and I'm on heavy insulin. So I thought, you know what, I feel like a drink, it's been rough. So I pour myself a gin and tonic. I have 2-3 gin and tonics. Chair, I get a call at 6 o'clock. No, this is Jared Watson. Angelo, I've got Lindsay and Roth. Can we quickly pop in? You don't need to worry about food. I'll bring pizzas.
Yes.
All right, before you go on, please. I'm not sure if the sound is still working.
Well, I may have touched something here. Yeah. If you touch the wrong button, then.
All right,
Thank
Chair.
you.
It's now working. Thank you. Please just go back to paragraph 51.26 and deal with what you say in that paragraph concerning the offer and your response to the offer and whether any changes were made to the offer before the meeting ended. What happened there?
Okay. Chair, sorry, I wasn't reading off my notes. I was going off my memory. At 10 a.m., Mr. Valence Watson and his son Jared arrived at my house requesting that I look at the offer in the presence of Mr. Andries van Tonder. I looked at the offer and I suggested changes. So they brought an offer, I made some changes on it. Because we knew exactly where we were going with this. The response from Valence Watson was that they would accept any change I would make in the offer. So I made changes accordingly. I never changed any financials, any figures. I only changed terms. So I would be pedantic and change one or two terms and then give it back to them just to play for time. Okay?
You say that you even sent it to your attorney to peruse the offer made.
Yes, that was on the late afternoon. I said,
So
have a
just
look at
to
it.
clarify at this stage, or to give you an opportunity to clarify, because again, it's not entirely clear what you were doing at this stage. You say that you were going along with them in order to obtain proof that
Yes.
you were being bought out, as it were.
That's correct. Chair.
Why was it necessary then to send, firstly, to amend the offer, and secondly, to send it to your attorney to peruse the offer and the changes?
Because I've dealt with the Watsons for 19 years. They are shrewd and cunning. And I wanted to make sure that my attorneys also were aware of what was happening with them.
But why don't you
Tell
say
me-
that in your statement?
I think,
Well,
Chair.
maybe, Mr. Pretorius, before we go so far about this, I want to know what the main features of the offer were. What were the main features of the offer?
Chair, the main features of the offer were that it would be about 50 million rand over 5 years.
Per year, per month?
No, that was paid 5 million per annum. Between
you-
5 and 10 million rand per annum, providing I could prove how good I was.
And what were you supposed to do? What were you supposed to perform? What work? Or what were you supposed to deliver?
Keep quiet. That's what I had to do.
And this offer, how did this offer deal with your part as to what you were supposed to do?
Just said I must not mention anything that would make the company look bad.
Okay, so you would be paid about 5 million rand a year for 3 years, you said?
5 years.
For 5 years.
It was between 5 and 10 million rand per annum. Minimum was 5 million per annum.
Yes. So what was guaranteed was 5 million
That's correct.
per year.
That's correct.
And if you proved yourself quite good, then you could get more, up to 10 million.
That's correct, Chair.
I wonder how do you become
Good.
very good in silence?
Chair,
If you are silent and you don't say things, how do you become
you run
perform
away
better?
you run away to Italy, Chair. You run away with all the information to Italy. That's how you be good, I suppose.
Okay.
Chair, it also included, I think, 250,000 rand per month,
Yes.
just so I could have some money to keep me happy as well.
That's apart from the 5 million rand a year.
That's correct, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Pretorius, you had a question, but I
Yes,
wanted to hear the main features of the offer first.
Thank you, Chair. information that you are giving to the Commission, as set out in paragraph 51.26, appears to indicate that you were taking the offer seriously, you went to the extent of suggesting changes, and you raised the issue of changes, or the issue of changes was raised with you by Valence Watson, and you then took the trouble to make the changes and to send it on to your attorney. That statement in paragraph 51.26 appears to indicate that you were taking this negotiation seriously, that it wasn't a pretense. If it was a pretense, simply ask, why didn't you say so here?
Because I was dealing with a very shrewd attorney on the other side, and I needed to make it look authentic to get Mr. Watson to sign it.
Right. But I'm sorry, maybe I'm not making myself clear, and let me try again. We are now dealing with the present. There's no need to be cautious in relation to attorneys and Mr. Watson anymore. We simply want to know the real story. And so when you made the statement in 51.26, the issues concerning Mr. Watson and his conduct not relevant. It's what the correct position was. And my question is, now, today, 2019, January, why didn't you say that there, that this was all a ruse, you were playing along?
Because I didn't have much time to prepare the statement, Chair. If I had more time, I would have used another 100 pages on the statement.
But as a matter of fact, this is what happened here in paragraph 51.26 as you related. Your motives and other things you say you didn't have time to put in.
Chair, I think that the best answer for that would be, number one, to hear the other witnesses' comments before a decision is made, and what the approach was mutually. I don't see...
Yeah, but Mr. Agrizzi, Mr. Pretorius is simply asking you to confirm that what you wrote here is factually correct.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to say, Mr. Pretorius and Mr. Agrizzi, that we do know, of course, that since Mr. Agrizzi started giving evidence before this commission, he has mentioned it quite a number of times, that this affidavit was prepared with some degree of haste, as I understood to the position. He has mentioned that there are a number of other things that he would have liked to put in, which I even said at some stage there should be an opportunity for him to supplement it if he wants to. So I just thought...
Yes, Chair, I'll address that issue at the conclusion of the evidence. There are a number of issues that require some preparation and some detail. And of course the investigations are continuing, but I'll deal with a number of issues in that regard, if I may, at the conclusion of the evidence of Mr. Agrizzi.
That's fine. But that offer that we are talking about, is it in the bundle? Or that agreement, or is it not?
Chair, I did ask for it to be in the bundle. I did ask.
Mr. Pretorius,
Is it available?
Yes, it is available.
Yes, we'll place it in the bundle.
Okay, all right.
Because it's a critical part of the...
I think it's very important.
And the emails between myself and the Watsons later on.
Yes.
And Chair, I think even if it means I've got to break for 5 minutes and get it on my computer, and put it on the screen, I'm more than willing to.
Yes.
Well, perhaps we could obtain it and include it in the bundle and deal with it at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, that's fine, yeah. And your recollection, Mr. Agrizzi, is quite clear that in terms of what you were supposed to do, it reflects that you would keep quiet about activities and so on at Bosasa.
Chair, if it means I've got to postpone my trip by a day or two, I'm prepared to do it. But I do want everything to come out, and I think
Yes.
that we cannot be selective in this.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think Mr. Pretorius has indicated that we could deal with it at 2 o'clock, so in the meantime, you would be able to obtain it and it will be placed before me. Thank you.
Can we go, please, Mr. Agrizzi, to page 102 of your affidavit, paragraph 52?
Yes?
According to your affidavit, there was a meeting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon of the 24th of August, 2018.
That was the meeting that Mr. Valance and Jared Watson had departed at 1500 hours. They left my house.
Right. What happened then?
Well, when they left my house, it's when I sat back and I had a piece of carrot cake and a couple of gins and tonics, which I don't normally drink, Chair, but I'd had enough. I was tired, I was overtired. I actually couldn't fall asleep. I tried reading my books, nothing. So I had a gin and tonic, and then I got the call. And then I had to think, well, what am I going to arrange for supper? Because I don't like people come to my house and there's nothing to eat. So I got hold of my daughter. I said to my daughter, please, will you buy some, I remember it was tikka chicken curry from Holy Cow, and it was biryani. Pick it up on the way when you come home, because my wife wasn't there. Because of all of this, I'd sent her away. So she went on a little break. So I shouldn't have had it. I shouldn't have had my gin and tonic. I was agitated. I was so fed up, Chair, that it just got to me. And even worse than that, I should have known that, to say no sometimes is okay. But I thought, I always try and be the nice guy. So I said, no, it's fine, come around. So they arrived there.
What time?
I think it must have been about 7:30 in the evening.
At this stage, the offer that we have talked about, that draft agreement, you had sent it to your attorney and it was unsigned as yet.
There was no...
At that stage.
Chair, I wasn't even waiting for a response from the attorney.
Yeah.
I just sent the changes, and the proposed changes were small little things that I sent straight through to Brian Beebuck.
Okay, no, I just want to get this sequence.
Yes.
As to where both sides were with regard to the agreement when this latest visit occurred, was the position that the draft agreement had been sent to your attorney, you were waiting for, he was still to come back to you, or was the position that you had told them of your position and in regard to it?
Chair, I told them of my position. They'd send me a draft. I'd made changes to it, I sent it back. Bear in mind, in the back of my head and that of my colleague Andres, we wanted to get a signature of Gavin Watson's on that piece of paper.
Yes.
So we played them. We sent a copy to
Yes.
my attorney as well.
Yes.
But we still sent a copy with the changes to Beebuck
Yes.
as well.
Okay.
Because we weren't going to even sign it. So it was a case of playing them for time.
Okay.
We knew that the longer we played them for time, the more urgent Gavin Watson would sign it. And that's what we wanted. We wanted that signature on that piece of paper.
Yes, thank you.
Did a meeting eventually take place, although not at 3 o'clock that evening?
It did take place, yes.
Who was present?
initially my daughter came in and she gave me the food. And she set up the table for everybody. And she had something to eat with all of us. And then she went to her room.
Right. Who else was present?
It was only myself, Jared Watson, Lindsay Watson, Roth Watson. It's the only people that were present.
Did you know at that stage whether the proceedings or the contents of that meeting were being recorded?
I noticed that there was a lot of fiddling around in the pockets, and I presumed that they were recording the meeting. But, you know, I think in hindsight, Chair, I shouldn't have even had the meeting because I wasn't myself. You see some afternoons I actually fall asleep here. I actually want to fall asleep or I get confused. So in hindsight, yes, I knew they were taping me.
Did you know at the time the meeting took place that they were recording the meeting?
I knew they were recording me.
From the beginning or from only at a certain stage during the meeting?
They were recording me from the beginning, from when they walked in the door. He disappeared a few times to the toilet. What they forget is I've got mirrors on my stairway. And if you're sitting in the dining room, you can actually see from what someone's busy with when they go to the toilet.
Yeah, but what I mean is whether your awareness that they were recording what was being said at the meeting, whether you had that awareness, that knowledge from the time the meeting commenced.
From when we sat down for supper, I
Yes.
knew they were recording me.
Okay,
Well,
thank you.
It's important that you take care concerning your answer, Mr. Agrizzi. Your awareness or otherwise of the meeting being recorded could have been a reconstruction on your part. You could have thought later, well, if I put all these facts together in my memory, I now conclude later after the meeting that it was being recorded. Or you could have said what you said at the meeting with the knowledge that it was being recorded.
I agree.
So what is the case?
Cases I knew they were recording me, Chair. I knew that they were coming there to try and set me up. I knew it. In my gut, I knew it.
So is your final answer that as the meeting started, you knew that they were recording you? Or is your final answer that as the meeting started, you suspected that they were recording you? Or is the position that subsequent to the meeting, when you had regard to a number of things, you concluded that they had been recording you? Which of the three is the correct one? Or if there's a fourth one, you can tell me.
As a matter of fact, after this whole thing, my daughter came to me and says, you know, Dad, you've been recorded. Even my daughter knew that there was recordings taking place.
Yeah, but that doesn't help me with the question.
With the current, I knew in myself that they'd recorded. And then my daughter told me as well. She says, Dad, they've recorded you, even though she wasn't in the whole meeting.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if that explains it. I don't know how to explain that. I knew that there was fishy stuff going on.
Well,
Okay.
it is important because of a number of reasons, and that'll become clear in a moment, Mr. Agrizzi. But as I understand your evidence, after several questions, both from the chair and from myself, at the time the meeting was taking place, and from the inception of the meeting, you knew it was being recorded. Is that correct? And that is not an afterthought, it is what you knew at the time of the meeting. Correct?
Yeah.
And you allowed the meeting to continue, notwithstanding the fact that it was being recorded. You didn't stop them. You didn't say, Mr. Watson or whoever else, please stop recording. You allowed the meeting to continue with the recording taking place.
I thought I could control it, Chair. Evidently I couldn't. Evidently I couldn't. I don't think...
What do you mean you thought you would control it?
I thought I would manage this whole meeting with them.
Okay.
I thought maybe, you know, if I know they're doing something, I can manage it.
Okay.
I didn't realize the impact that having carrot cake and a gin and all that would have on me. But anyway, it's not an excuse.
Thank you.
Be that as it may, Mr. Agrizzi, how long did this meeting last?
Gee. Also till late at night, I think it was 11, 12 o'clock.
Right. Several hours.
Yeah.
And what was discussed?
Well, at first we sat at the dining room table and we were discussing the world, and we were discussing, they raised some religious issues and that, and then later on we went into my TV room, which is where I relax, and I put my feet up and relax. So after that we went, we actually sat and we were chatting, and then they showed me a video, and then I showed them a video, and you know what happens is that I actually showed them a video that their father sent me. And we were discussing, there's a myriad of things we discussed, from a woman by the name of Lindy Goos right the way through to the ministry. Then we spoke about affairs and in families, and we spoke about things that I used to speak to those kids previously about.
And so now it was yourself, Jarrod Watson, Roth Watson, and Lindsay Watson only, or
Yes.
plus your wife?
No, my wife had gone away. My wife and my daughter had gone. My wife was at a friend, and my daughter was upstairs in a room.
Yeah, so it was just the four of you.
That's correct, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Part of the contents of that meeting were indeed recorded and later published further on social media.
That is correct, Chair.
I will give you an opportunity to
And
deal with that, but I must play that for you and for the chair. And
I
you will have an
appreciate,
opportunity to do
I appreciate the fact that we've got to be open and transparent, Chair, but also you need to play the whole 3 hours, because you need to hear what started it. I'm not finding excuses. Listen, I'm embarrassed of myself. I'm ashamed of myself for ever doing that. But please, just understand the context. No sleep. I was beside myself, and I'm not going to make excuses. You can even hear me slur. I haven't made an excuse about this. But once again, Chair, I am a racist. I agree. Judge me on that. It's fine. You may play it.
Right, we're going to play the excerpt which appeared or was heard on public media.
Not a racist, he's a Jew.
Why don't you play the whole 3 hours? That's fair.
Mr. Agrizzi, we leading the evidence. We don't have the whole 3 hours. We may be able to obtain it through the powers that the chair has, and we certainly, at your instance, will ask for it and examine it. But for the moment, we're placing the short clip on record, and you will have a full opportunity to deal with it.
Thank you. Once more, my apologies for this, Chair.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Not a racist, he's a Jew. Your father's trying to tell you about. He says that I made a blind cafe.
Yeah, but he must wait until he is told to start.
Yes,
Or had you set him?
I hadn't, but
Yeah,
I
he
can't
must wait.
control everything behind
Yeah,
me,
he
Chair.
must wait until you say so. Is that where we go now?
So, would you just go back to the beginning, please, of the clip? And you can press play now.
Not a racist, he's a Buddhist. His father's trying to tell you about it. He says that I let a bloody cafe run. Showing them around it. He says, man, they can go wanking the streets of all our care. Yeah, they steal, they loot, they rape, they destroy. In fact, his father, my dad was there, and I takes out the gun and shoots it. Just over the hills. Yes! Definitely. Just over the hills. Why? He was sleeping.
What they said to him was, this is your mess.
That's Kaffers. No, I'm telling you, they are Kaffers. Yeah. All right, because they are screwing your father with information that he shouldn't get. And I spent hours on the road, and I spent hours working, I spent hours behind pots. I cleaned kitchens and toilets. Those Kaffers have done nothing. So I'll go into that company, I will personally go into that company, with or without permission, and I will fuck each of those Kaffers out there. I'm telling you now, I will. Peter!
He's an absolute racist.
Uses Peter.
Shavasi. He's an absolute racist.
Oh my God.
And he wants to
That Kaffer just needs a good eye. Yeah, from all those Kaffers to be good off. He couldn't fix up the press. How did I form my alliance with Derek, with Adrian, with all these people? Why? I did that 4 years ago, not now. 4 years ago, Adrian was here with his kids. He would play, the kids would play here. He would play here.
All right, that is the clip, and I'll give you a moment to consider the implications for your evidence, but I'd like to ask you one or two questions about that clip, please.
Yes, Chair.
Mr. Agrizzi. First of all, the legal team has placed on record that it's nakedly racist, grossly offensive. It's difficult to find words actually to describe what is said on there with any accuracy, but it's for the chair to assess what the implications are for the assessment of the veracity of your evidence and to deal with it. You will concede, as I understand it, that your comments are nakedly racist and grossly offensive, both to the individuals that you refer to and to the country at large.
I've admitted it, Chair, and I'm sorry.
Yes.
That's all I can say.
But there's a further question. It will, in all probability, be put to you by various instances that that conversation exhibiting racism in an extreme form is part of the motivation for you giving evidence. In other words, that your evidence is motivated by racism. What do you say to that?
My answer to that is, Chair, just basically work off the facts, please. Let other people see, and other whistleblowers see, that you can work off the facts. I made a mistake, big mistake. I shamed my family. That my kids, they couldn't even go to varsity, they had to do work from home. I'm paying the price for it, don't you worry. What I'm saying is, I don't see how somebody can say that I'm being racist when I'm pointing out the facts, that Mr. Watson corrupted people. That's all I'm pointing out. He's not black. And that's why it's important, Chair, to listen to the context of what I was saying. Do you realize in the beginning of the video clip or the sound clip, it says he used to, he. Perhaps I was referring to Mr. Watson there. The two people that I refer to using the K word is Johannes Kumedi and Papa Leshabane. Those are the two. And the reason for that is quite simply because I was wrong and there's no excuse. But you know, Chair, when people threaten you, and the evidence hasn't been brought before you yet about the threats that were made to me, except for what I told you, but the transcripts aren't ready yet, or they haven't been presented. When people threaten you, you do stupid things. I'm not making excuses, Chair, but it was directed at them. It was in the privacy of my home, in my own privacy of my own home.
Well, I don't know about what difference it makes if it's in the privacy of your home. Does it make a difference? Is one allowed?
It doesn't.
Is the position that one is not allowed to be racist outside one's house, but in one's house one is entitled to be racist?
Chair, there's no excuse. Let me leave it at that. There's no excuse whatsoever for what happened.
Thank you. So there are two issues. One, Mr. Agrizzi, is the content of that conversation.
Yes.
And its implications for those to whom you referred and for South Africa as a whole. That's one set of issues.
Yes.
We've made it clear that from the legal team's point of view at least, we can have no truck with such conduct, and we've led it in order to be fair to everyone involved in this inquiry, and in fact including yourself.
I accept that, Chair.
The second point is the matter that you've now had an opportunity to deal with is whether your evidence here has been motivated by racism, and secondly, whether your evidence should still be assessed on its merits in the light of what we have heard, amongst other things. Do you have any further comment in that regard?
Chair, have a look at the facts. Just bear in mind when you decide or not. I've done what I set out to do. It's now in the court's hands, it's in your hands. I can't do anything about your decision. I can't influence Advocate Pretorius. I can't influence the legal team. But what I can do is I can ask you, please, to make it more accessible for whistleblowers to come out so that we fix up this country. Because, Chair, quite simply, if whistleblowers see what I've had to go through, they wouldn't want to whistleblow.
Well, Mr. Agrizzi, I can say this to you, that what I've heard you say there is extremely offensive.
Yes.
It's totally unacceptable. But that does not mean that I will not examine your evidence and see where you may be speaking the truth and where you may not be speaking the truth. I will still examine your evidence, consider it properly, consider the evidence of those who will come and give evidence about what you have said, and deal with it in the way a judge should deal with it.
That's all I want, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Agrizzi. Can we go then to paragraph 53 of your statement?
Yes, Chair.
What happened on Saturday, the 25th of August, 2018?
On the 25th of August, Chair, I received a draft agreement again. It offered, this new agreement was from Brian Biebuck, and it offered in excess of 50 million rand to comply with the Watsons' requests. I responded by saying I wasn't happy with the fact that there was no signed surety ships. So I added something extra. I wanted signed surety.
Before you go on, was the agreement signed?
No, it was not.
Carry on, please.
And I said to them specifically, I was not happy. I wanted signed surety ships from them, standing for that agreement. I was then told by Brian Biebuck in an email that he sent to me after because I made sure everything was in writing, Chair. And I actually provided it to the team already, but I'll provide it again. That I said to him in writing that, I wanted surety ships. So he responded by saying, yes, the family will sign surety. But then he added in the mail as well, he says, but please, I need this done now. Please, Angelo. I need it done now. And then I need your bank account, please, so I can deposit 10 million rand into it. In email. But
this is now who talking to you saying
this
that?
This is Brian Biebuck,
Okay.
their attorney.
And the good faith payment you refer to, what happened there?
In terms of?
Was it ever paid?
Never.
Right. And what was the condition attached to the making of that payment?
No, that I would have to sign the agreement.
Before it was signed by anyone else?
I'll get to that. If you've asked me to give my response, let me explain it.
Sure, go ahead, please.
And then 53.2 says, I wasn't about to sign anything or agree to any payment. This I had caucused with Andries van Tonder, and if I remember correctly, my attorney said I'm not going to sign anything. This was about 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday.
Was that the 25th?
That's the 25th, Chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Saturday. Was it? Or Sunday? I can't remember now, Chair. Knowing the Watsons and what I was up against, I knew we wanted a signature. If it was a surety, we were quite happy with that, because that we could have proved was part of the agreement, on that proposed agreement. Brian Biebuck countered me by saying, no, it can be signed in counterpart. I think he knew where I was going with it. I wasn't interested in any offer to silence, to buy my silence. And I was advised by advised the Watsons and Biebuck in writing.
Did you send an email to that effect?
Yes, I did.
And have you provided the investigators with that email as well?
Yes, I did.
Chair, what we will do is we'll compile a bundle of the relevant correspondence.
And
Okay.
I can actually read you the email. I don't know if I've got a copy with me.
Have you got it there?
I'll have it on my laptop. It's literally a minute.
Well, perhaps we can deal with that at 2 o'clock.
At 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically in the email it says, it was lovely. Because sometimes I like a bit of humor even in those situations. So it was lovely meeting you guys again. And it's wonderful. I just want to confirm what the discussions were about. And I put in there exactly what the discussions were. And at the bottom I said to them, but I want you to understand something. It was all nice meeting you, but you're not going to buy my silence. That I made very clear. And I said, you must think I'm an idiot. Because now I had the offer from Brian Biebuck. I knew I wasn't going to get Watson's signature, but I reckoned I had enough evidence with me. If you think I'm going to sign an agreement and ever get involved with the Watsons again, you've got another thing coming. That's what I said to them. Lindsay Watson then sends me a message. She says, oh, I thought last night was wonderful. What's wrong with the agreement? And I've got all the WhatsApps. I've sent it to the investigators. They've got it. What's wrong with the agreement? I get another message from Brian Biebuck, an email saying, no, Gavin's going to fly up now to come sign that agreement. And can we arrange another meeting with the brothers so that we can sort it out? Put off my phone. That evening at about 9 o'clock, 7:30 to 9 o'clock, Chair. I'm not reading off my notes, so
Yes.
Yeah, I understand Mr. Pretorius refers me back to my notes, but I tell you,
Yeah.
I talk off the cuff, it's better for me. About 1900 hours, 2000 hours, I get the security guys phone me from the gate. No, they've got a very upset two gentlemen here that want to come through. Now, security are very good. They realize, look, these people are looking very agitated and that. Let me rather just double check with the owner. And he said to me, he says, they're agitated. But I didn't answer the phone, sorry. My wife answered the phone. She said to him, they're agitated. So they're not allowed in. My brother was with me in my house. We said, no, we don't want to see anybody. But now they've been trying to phone me, harassing me with phone calls as well. So that was on the 25th of August, Chair.
Yeah.
That evening. So that's it. I am now dealing with the Hawks, and I'm dealing with the police on this. All right? And that's that. So, Chair, what I think is important now is to show you what I had to deal with. So that's on the 25th. On the 31st of August. That's nearly a
August
week,
2017.
6 days away. I get
2018.
2018.
I'm sorry?
20,
What?
2018.
yes.
Or are we are in August 2018. Okay, all right.
53.9. I get a call, this is on the 31st of August, 2018, I get a call in the afternoon from City Press. They've just had a meeting with Joe Gumede and Papale Shabane. They've just had a meeting with Joe Gumede and Papale Shabane, and they want to send me comments, question. Chair, I didn't even know that they'd open up a police case against me, Joe Gumede and Papale Shabane, at Douglasdale Police Station. I didn't even know. City Press told me. They had opened up the case earlier at the police station. So I said, well, it's very strange. You know, why would you, what is the intention to go to the City Press, have a meeting with them, Papa and Joe Gumede, and then hand over the recording to them from their side? So, but even worse, City Press knew that there was a police case. I didn't even know. Nobody phoned me. I eventually phoned up the inspecting officer and went and saw them so that they don't think anything funny. But what I'm trying to say is that this case had been opened up and it's pending. I actually don't know what's happening with it. I've been too focused on this. On the 1st of September, I mean, that's literally August, September, this lady starts putting out things on social media on me and all that type of thing. Now,
Which lady now?
that's one of the ladies that are complaining. One of the three press puts out articles on the very next day.
Is it a journalist from City Press?
No, not from City Press. From it's a lady that used to be with Sunday Times. That I know of her when she was at Sunday Times. Puts out questions to me and starts publishing it on social media. The very next day. Chair, what can I do? It's just an attempt to discredit me. Yes, I made mistakes. I admit it. Gee, I'll do whatever I have to do to fix it. I will do whatever I have to do. But, you know, then this whole thing gets blown up. Why, Chair? Because if they can discredit me, they'll discredit the information as well. And that's basically what happened in a nutshell. And that, Chair, quite simply, has been the story all along. It doesn't include everything.
Yes.
And I need to add quite a lot to it.
Yeah. No, thank you.
The lady you referred to, would you take a moment to think of the name, whether you can recall the name?
It's one of the journalists. The lady's name is Pinky Kubani.
Thank you. I want to take you back, please, to the meeting at which you made the remarks which have just been played to you.
Yes.
Paragraph 52.4. on page 102. Now, you were given an opportunity at some length today to recall whether you were aware of the meeting being recorded at the time the meeting took place, or whether this was an afterthought on your part.
Sure.
In paragraph 52.4, in the fifth line, you say, I at the time was unaware that the Watson children had planned to entrap me in a heated discussion. Do you stand by that statement?
Yes, I actually, in my gut, I knew they were recording me, but I wasn't aware that they were trying to entrap me.
And what is the conclusion that you have reached as a matter of afterthought?
Sorry, I just want to clarify something. You asked me the question, did I know that they were recording me? Yes, I knew they were recording me, but I didn't know they wanted to entrap me.
Yes, now I hear that, and you've now explained what might otherwise
and
have been seen as a
If I can just add
contradiction.
that, Chair, that is why I would like, as bad as it is, because the part you've heard is the bad part from me. I would love you to hear the bad part, the preceding 3 hours. Why has that never ever been played?
Yes. Well,
Yes.
we'll attempt to obtain it. You understand it's not in our possession.
Yes, I do.
You have sought to make a distinction between being aware that they were recording you and being aware that they intended or they were planning to entrap you. What is it that you had in mind they were trying to do to entrap you?
Chair, at that stage, what we wanted to do was to entrap them with the agreement.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I must have confused you. You said you were unaware that they were planning to entrap you.
Correct.
Okay. Did you subsequently become aware of that?
Well, afterwards, when we found out that they recorded us, we realized we were stupid. Well, I realized I was stupid. I was the only one there.
Yes. But you told us that you were aware from the commencement of the meeting that they were recording you.
That's right.
I would imagine that that should have said to you, they are onto something that they would use against me.
In a way, you're right.
Yeah.
But at 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, you forget these things as well.
Yeah, but
And then you start saying them.
isn't that being aware that they were seeking to entrap you? When you are aware that they are
No, I thought they were
recording-
just being protective of themselves, and I actually didn't realize, Chair. You know, I wasn't in the right state of mind as well at that time.
But when you deposed to the affidavit,
Yes.
that was a different time. The atmosphere was different.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering why, if you were aware that they were secretly recording you, why it would be that you wouldn't have thought that they were intending to entrap you.
I think, Chair, I think they were more worried about, I knew they were recording me. I think that they recorded me for their protection. I don't think, because I would have picked up the phone and phoned their uncle and said, this is what they said to me. So I don't think they were trying to, I don't know, Chair, I was half asleep there. I can't even remember.
Mr. Pretorius.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, we at paragraph 54, there are a number of issues that we have to deal with over the long adjournment, and the evidence is almost complete. There are a number of outstanding issues, and we have an idea of how to deal with them. There's also perhaps an order that we would like you to make. The witness has expressed full cooperation in surrendering devices for analysis by the investigation team. This will either confirm or not confirm his evidence, but he's shown full cooperation in this regard and will surrender all his devices. We'd like to confirm that in an order. An order has been prepared. But may we take the long adjournment to deal with all these issues and resume at 2 o'clock?
Okay, all right. We'll take the lunch adjournment now, and we will resume at 2 o'clock. We adjourn.
Thank you.